Time now for my political panel. Liberal MP Jason Falinski and Labor MP Josh Burns join me. And just starting on this very big story, Jason, the leaking of these text messages. I spoke to Barnaby Joyce a moment ago and he said it's fair enough that they are leaked because the Prime Minister needed to defend himself. But is that right? This is a huge and important ally at a time of great historical significance for our region. Should the Prime Minister have really, or his office, or, you know, been leaking these text messages?
Well, PK, I don't think we've seen anything quite like this since John Cleese got on the ramparts in Monty Python of the French castle and refused to let King Arthur inside. I mean, the fact remains, though, that the Prime Minister, the government of Australia, was left, honestly, with very little option. We had a head of state of another country accusing our government, in the form of the Prime Minister, of having lied to them. I mean, it was out there stuff. And I think that you are therefore left with very few options but to present within the confines of what are, negotiations where you're not releasing other sensitive information, evidence to the effect that shows that they weren't lied to and we weren't lying to them.
OK. Josh, Barnaby Joyce was on earlier and I think you heard him. He says we've got to put this issue behind us and that the text messages being leaked is justifiable. What do you think?
Well, I really, to be honest, found it very difficult to follow Barnaby Joyce's interview. But putting that aside, I would say this, PK, that it's not just the President of France who accused the Prime Minister of being a liar. The former Liberal Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, also said that Scott Morrison's a liar. The President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, said that the handling of the AUKUS announcement was very clumsy. So clearly Scott Morrison's handling of this whole decision was very, very poorly done. And I think this is the point here. No one, and it's certainly not the Labor Party, is criticising the Prime Minister for the decision that was made. Ultimately, of course, we should be making decisions about our defence capability in line with our national interests. But if you cannot do that and maintain Australia's credibility on the international stage, acting honestly, transparently and accountably, then you are unfit to be the Prime Minister of Australia. And Scott Morrison made a decision, but he did it in such a way where he has caused a diplomatic disaster with our friend and ally in France. Yeah,
it's not looking good, that's for sure. Jason, the French ambassador says it was a stab in the back and accused Australia of deceit over the submarines. That's a pretty extraordinary statement from our ambassador today. You'd think that everyone would be cooling their heels, but clearly they are very upset at the way that this issue's been handled. What will Australia do to de-escalate this situation?
Well, hang on. Why is it our job to de-escalate it?
Well, I don't know. It's a pretty important country to have an alliance with.
Hang on, PK. Hang on, PK. You've got the French throwing insults at left, right and centre. In the words of Boris Johnson, prenez un groupe. I mean, these guys, they're threatening electricity supplies on the island of Jersey. They're refusing to allow English fishing boats to come into ports in France. They're tearing up agreements that they signed less than 12 months ago. They're throwing insults at our nation, at our Prime Minister. You've got the French ambassador going to the National Press Club, making just some incredibly undiplomatic claims. I mean, this is just, I'm sorry, it is not on our watch. It is not the role of this government or this country to de-escalate this.
But wait,
we have at
Jason,
all times,
isn't it in our... No, that might be what you want to do when you want to win an argument, but your job, isn't it, is to keep Australians... Wait a minute, I have an actual question. It's a real question that's about to come out of my mouth, which is this. Isn't it our job to make Australians safer in our region? Clearly this is an important ally. That's why you de-escalate, because it's in Australia's best interests.
OK, so, PK, that is all that we have been doing. We have chosen a superior submarine with a whole bunch of technology and technology developments. This isn't just about submarines. This is actually about embedding us with technologies across the board, whether it is in robotics, whether it is in digital twinning, whether it is in hypersonics, whether it is in quantum computing, all areas where Australia leads the world. AUKUS is about that. Plus it is about nuclear submarines. It is primarily about ensuring the safety of our nation and the sovereignty of our nation. That was better achieved with AUKUS than it was with a submarine contract that was not delivering as it had been promised to be. Now, that's simply the fact. Now, at the end of the day, we are not the ones throwing it. We're not going around calling the French president a liar. We're not telling the French ambassador to go home. We're not the ones turning up at the equivalent of the National Press Club in Paris with our ambassador and saying, oh, you know, the French government's out of control. We're not the ones doing that. And it's not just us saying that. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is saying that in French notice. I don't think you can accuse Australia of escalating this. Simply put, this, as Barnaby was saying, we had a contract, they weren't delivering, we're the customer, we decided to go elsewhere. It's that simple.
Josh, you heard the very robust argument being put by Jason there that actually, you know, it's not our job to de-escalate. What's your take on that?
Well, it's clear, Patricia, that the adults are not in charge of our country, that instead of acting with diplomacy, Scott Morrison is trying to act like a university political brawler and continue the argument and fight with the French. Now, we had a $90 billion French contract, and extraordinarily, the reports were that the Prime Minister decided to notify the French President via an SMS, and clearly that escalated tensions. And you know, it's the French have responded in their way, and then instead of the Prime Minister being gracious and acting like a statesman, he decided to leak text messages to the newspaper. So I think that all in this whole episode has been very messy, and I think that what would be in Australia's national interest is, instead of the tone that is being expressed by Jason and Barnaby and the Prime Minister at this stage, I think what would be in our national interest is to act like adults, to accept that these are big decisions, and to try and repair the relationship with this important friend and ally, because it is important for our country that we do so.
We're out of time. Thank you to both of you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Very,
I can't allow
20 seconds, come on.
No, that's fine. So what Josh is saying is we should just cop to being called liars. What Josh is saying is we should just cop to an ambassador of a foreign nation coming to Canberra and calling the entire Australian government.
No, he didn't. He called the Prime Minister a liar. He called the Prime Minister a liar, not the whole Australian government.
Say, this government is not going to do that. We will stand up for the interests of Australians and this nation. I don't understand what it is that the Labor Party thinks that we should be doing in this situation.
We're out of time. We can't keep prosecuting it. We will be tomorrow on the show. Thanks for coming on. Liberal MP Jason Falinski and Labor MP Josh Burns joining me there.